May 16th, I would like to call this Caddo Parish Commission work session to order. Could we have a roll call, please, Mr. Clerk?
Commissioner Hopkins.
Here.
Commissioner Johnson. Commissioner Jackson. Commissioner Young. Commissioner Burrell.
Yeah.
Commissioner Jones. Commissioner Gage Watts. Commissioner Talaferro.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Atkins.
Here.
Commissioner Chavez. Commissioner Lazarus.
Here.
And Commissioner Epperson.
Here.
All right, you have 8 members present of 12, 4 absent, and that does constitute a quorum.
All right, thank you very much. Commissioner Chavez, welcome.
Chairman, Commissioner Jackson and Young are out there. They're in a meeting back there.
Okay. Commissioner Chavez, would you be willing to do the prayer for us?
Sure.
And Commissioner Epson, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? All stand, please.
Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this day. Thank you for the glorious weather outside. Thank you that we're here together, joined around this horseshoe, and at the end of the day, at the foot of the cross, that we unify and we serve one God. Thank you that we're here today to do the work of the parish, and that you lean on us, guide us, and direct us to do the work as your will. In your Son's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Let's all face the flag. I would ask that all military and veterans render the standard hand to brow salute. All others, right hand across your heart. And if while we are reciting the Pledge of Allegiance, please remember our POW and our MIAs. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Chavez. Thank you, Commissioner Epperson. Mr. Clerk, do we have any agenda additions?
We do. First of all, there's a minor change, not really an addition, but there's a typo on your agenda that is 100% my fault of trying to talk on the phone while I was typing the name of a special resolution. And I put the name Thomas instead of Carter as Martha Carter's last name on her special resolution. So if we could amend that, you know, that's just a change that
That's
wanted to
item number
mention.
1114, change Thomas to Carter, just a typo. I think that we can do that by acclamation. All right.
Great. And then the other item, there is an item today that is a proposed agenda addition. I believe it's resolution number, I believe we numbered it 32. And it is from Commissioner Epperson. And this would be, yes, it would be a proposed resolution number 32, which would be a resolution to call upon the federal government to urgently address the student loan crisis and enact a plan to cancel student loan debt and begin the transition to education as a public good and otherwise providing with respect thereto. This resolution is, or this proposed agenda addition is uploaded on your agendas as an attachment. If you would refresh your digital agenda, it should be available for your reading under the agenda additions section.
Okay, well, we would need a motion and
Move for agenda addition.
Second.
As stated.
we have a motion from Commissioner Epperson to expand the agenda to include this addition with a second from Commissioner Johnson. Any comments on your proposed agenda addition, Commissioner?
Just think that is highly relevant, and as we go forward, we can discuss it in more details if
Okay.
necessary.
We would need to open up the floor for public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience that is in favor or opposed to this agenda addition? Please come to the front podium. Seeing no one, the public hearing is closed, and we will have a vote on expanding and adding this to the agenda.
Okay, so this is to vote to expand the agenda to include consideration of Resolution 32.
Commissioner Epperson?
Okay, and that motion carries with 10 in support, none in opposition, and 2 absent. And so that Resolution 32 will be considered. At the end of your new business section, it would actually be right after the item authorizing a special resolution of recognition for Martha Carter.
So what number, that's 11-15, is that?
That'd be 11:15.
Okay.
Okay, you want me to go ahead and move on to public comments?
Yes, please.
Okay, I'm not aware of any other agenda additions, so we'll move along to citizens' comments. Citizens who wish to address the commission are asked to fill out a comment card located in the chamber foyer and return to the president or myself. We have a basket over here, and comments are limited to 3 minutes. As of yet, I have not received any requests for public comments. Mr. President, I don't know if you received any otherwise?
No, I have not.
Okay, if that being the case, would you like to move on?
Yes, please.
Okay, that brings us to visitors. Where we do not have any scheduled visitors today, there was a request from Commissioner Jackson during the last meeting to have David North attend one of our meetings. One of our meetings this week, we did make that request for the Thursday meeting, but not for today, so I just wanted to mention that
Okay.
during this section. And that brings us to reports, where we find ourselves at the administrator report. You have the administration's report attached.
Dr. Wilson?
Yes, sir. And good afternoon, Commissioners. Good to see you all today. We have a few things. You all received an email from me, informing you all that we received 3 NACO Achievement Awards. One for the Emergency Assistant Rental Program, and 2 for programs out of parks. One was the Safe Summer and the Wild Child Summer Camp. Certainly we'll be receiving those awards this summer at the NACO Annual Conference. Also, the juvenile detention statistics are as follows. We have 26 children in detention. We have 5 belong to OJJ, and we have 5 runaways. And we also have 9 17-year-olds, and we also have 10 children at CCC. You should have before you the April financial report. And that should conclude my report for today.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Wilson. Let's see, Commissioner Jackson.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that we cleared, nobody ran away from our facility. We have some people who run away for some other.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
Yes, sir. They are runaways, ungovernable from
Gotcha.
dealing with other issues. So the judges remanded there for
Okay,
keeping, so they wouldn't run away again.
gotcha.
So otherwise, you back out the OJJ children and 5 runaways, we'll be down to 16 for a population at the center.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Jackson, anything else?
That's right.
Okay. Commissioner Young.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Dr. Wilson. I just wanted to ask you about the status of the removal of the monument.
What's that, sir?
About the monument.
Okay.
Just what the status is and when we should, what the begin date and the end date are likely to be, that kind of thing.
It's actually in progress, sir. The contractor is making arrangements here locally to begin his work, and the dates have changed several times. And I'll get you a more definitive date, because I thought it would have already occurred on the 12th, but that's sliding because of resources and materials to get started. But it's nearing that time that it will begin started soon.
Okay.
I'll get you a date.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, that's all.
Thank you. Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Dr. Wilson.
Yes, sir.
This monitor is still out, but the issue that I have concern with is the monitor on the back side is working.
Yes,
So
sir.
if the plug is not working or whatever wires is not working on this side, it seems like you can come from the back side and bring that monitor to life on this side.
Yes, sir. I understand, and I need to refer that inquiry to Jeff Everson on that, because I haven't spoken to the folks
Okay.
who have the responsibility for the chamber, but I think he has.
Okay. Well, Jeff.
I'm gonna ask for a quicker term solution for you, because I think they're continuing to work on the overall problem, but I absolutely agree,
Yeah, I
understand
mean,
that we need to.
It's difficult to see that monitor over there because you got the plexiglass up, there's glares. This one is not working either.
Yeah.
But during our last meeting, I went and walked on the back side of this one, and that one is working.
You're right.
So they can take that and splice it over to the front monitor, and we can actually see something on this side. So
Yeah.
if we can get them to work on that, that would help out. And
We'll try a fix with like an AV cable, like an old school kind of fix like that. That should be able to do what you're saying.
We're on like almost 3 months.
At least two.
Yes, it doesn't make any sense. Thank you.
Okay, that's it, Commissioner
Yes.
Johnson. Commissioner Epperson.
Dr. Wilson. We, the old Silvers building, I know we
Yes, sir.
did something, got it fixed up, and I think it's occupied now. Was the Silvers parking garage a part of that deal?
Yes, sir.
Okay, what's going on with it now?
It's not being used at all. I mean,
Okay.
I walked past
Any
there.
ideas as, I know it's not, but any ideas as to what we can do with it, or
Yeah.
anyone looking at, you got it for sale, or
Well-
was it a part of the
Yes, sir.
of the
It-
deal that the existing tenant is in the old Silvers building?
Yes, sir. It was part of the sale of the building, and the parking lot was sold at the same time to the same
Person?
purchaser.
Okay.
Yeah, so, yeah, you're right. I walked past it the other day, and it's all gated up. It's not being used at all. But we don't own it. It's owned by someone else. But
Okay.
I can try to make an
Could you
inquiry.
find out who it is and send me that information, please?
Yes, sir.
I had an idea as to the possibility of something that could be done with it. That's someone that brought to my attention.
Yeah.
I have some information on that I can share, Commissioner Epperson.
If you would, just get it to me.
Glad to.
My next question is, didn't we pass an ordinance providing funds for advertising to make Caddo Parish more palatable to people to move here or something? What's
Well,
the status on
I
that?
don't remember, did
What
we
are we
actually
doing?
approve those funds?
Was
Commissioner
it
Young?
approved? Okay, what are we doing there? I mean, what's happening with it?
Commissioner Epps, do you mind restating your question so I can hear it, please?
The
Sorry.
ordinance that was to provide funding to do, I guess, advertisement or solicitation of getting persons to come to Caddo to live or whatever it is.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We are actively looking at that, Commissioner Epperson. I participated in a meeting, 2 meetings last week for about 4 hours with the city, with the chamber and the tourist bureau. So they have a massive campaign underway now to look at the image and branding of this area, and we are kind of waiting to see the outcome of that so we can piggyback on that, because we need to have one cohesive message instead of several messages to get people to come here. But their endeavor is to do the same thing. So we are purposely kind of delaying a little bit just to see what the final outcome. They have a consultant I met with last week concerning the same matter, that they are hiring at a much higher rate than what we have money to do. So we think we can kind of piggyback on that as well.
Okay, and hopefully we don't bear the entire financial burden on what they are doing. So as John Escudé used to say, they need some skin in the game. They need some money in the game on it. So what amounts did we allocate for that?
Well, I think we have $100,000 that was allocated for our efforts. And
Right,
we didn't
for
want
our
to
efforts.
duplicate efforts because I
Okay.
think they're trying to do the same thing that we want to do.
Right. However, you know, since we come up with this, we still, as commissioners, we can put ideas on the table too, right?
Oh, yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, by all
right,
means.
so we're not gonna sit back and wait on them.
No, sir. We will probably have a supplement to what they are doing, but with a defined focus that will meet our needs.
And make sure they have their own money about what they're doing.
Yes, sir, they do.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Vice President Burrell.
Thank you, Mr. President. In the light of what is happening now recently in Buffalo, New York, as well as other cities around, going back to something that Commissioner John Paul Young mentioned about the monument, are we having any public discourse going on around that issue? And do we expect any?
Commissioner Burrell, we have not had any public discourse about it, but I can tell you I am concerned somewhat because the contractor is receiving threats and other officials are as well. So
Locally?
Pardon me?
Locally?
Yes, sir. Yes.
I kind of suspect that.
So we don't want to be alarmist, but we want to be very cautious because the last time, as you recall, concerning the monument, we had folks show up with M16s and AK-47s on opposite side of the street, and we don't want that being played out again. So we're trying to proceed with caution. We have entertained getting security to be involved in the process, and we built that into the contract.
Okay.
But we have not had a public discourse, but there seem to be a lot of people interested in knowing when we're going to get started and what's going to happen next.
Well, my concern is, given what has happened recently, and we as leaders in the parish, that the public be aware of not being at that location or encouraging them to not be there in case something like that happens for public safety.
Yes, sir. We are going to have the street closed off a couple of times for the contractor's work, and we will have the area fenced off so pedestrians can't go into the construction area. But short of that, we can't do anything else because you have to be able to have Texas Street open, and we have limited access to the courthouse on the Texas Street side. Preferably, they use the other Milan Street side going out of the courthouse.
In terms of our security, are we engaging our sheriff department?
Yes, sir, we are. We've
As well
been
as the city police?
the sheriff's department has been informed on the entire process, and we've been communicating with them as things move along.
Do they necessarily have the jurisdiction or the city? Because I heard at one time there was a controversy between who will
On the courthouse grounds, it's the sheriff. On the public sidewalk side, it's the city SPD.
Okay, so it probably need both.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Commissioner Burrell. Commissioner Young.
Thank you, Mr. President. Dr. Wilson, would you please ask Crystal Beecham to share the work that she's prepared about the Relocate to Caddo advertising project with Commissioner Epperson and maybe with the rest of us? She mentioned to me that she had made some progress on that, and he would probably like to see it too.
Okay, we will, sir.
Thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Commissioner Young. All right, seeing no one else on the board, let's carry on, Mr. Clerk.
All right, that will bring us to, also, I'm sorry, did you note that the April financials are attached? They are on your agenda if you need to reference those. And that brings us to commission remarks, communiques, reports, and other items related to the work session agenda.
Okay, anyone have any communiques for the group? Please get on the board. Seeing nobody,
Okay.
I will also reserve the president's report for Thursday. Let's move on to old business, Mr. Clerk.
Okay, we have no old business scheduled today, so we'll move forward through to new business, where we have a number of items. The first item is to authorize the introduction of ordinance number 6230 of 2022. That's an ordinance amending the budget of estimated revenues and expenditures for the Riverboat Fund and the Oil and Gas Fund in the amount of $6,500 to provide an appropriation for wildlife education and rehabilitation of Louisiana and otherwise provide with respect thereto. Just as a point of information, this is the companion piece to a piece you already adopted in your last meeting, necessary to be in compliance with the item that was adopted during your last meeting. So there, essentially, you adopted a request for this item to be drafted.
Okay.
Move for introduction.
Second.
Action on Thursday.
We have a motion from Commissioner Epperson, a second from Commissioner Young. Any comments, Commissioner Epperson? No. Okay. All right, let's vote.
All right, that motion carries with 11 in support, none in opposition, and 1 absent. And that brings us to the next item, 11.2, is to authorize the introduction of ordinance number 6231 of 2022. That's an ordinance to set the parish debt service millage for the purpose of paying principal and interest, which comes due in 2022, on outstanding general obligation bond issues. Each year, the commission must set the necessary tax millage to produce enough ad valorem revenue to pay the principal and interest due for the current year. For 2022, a millage rate of 1.50 mils will produce the necessary ad valorem revenue to pay the 2022 principal and interest.
Mr. President, I move to englobo and introduce ordinance number 6231, 6232, 6233, and 6234.
Okay, we have a motion to englobo and advance item 6, a motion from Commissioner Jackson to englobo and advance 6231, 6232, 6233, and 6234. Any comments, Commissioner Jackson?
They all just kind of
Related.
levying the standard mills, and so
Yep, standard annual stuff here. All right, seeing no one on the board, let's vote.
All right, that motion carries with 11 in support, none in opposition, and 1 absent. And that brings us to the next item, which is to authorize the introduction of ordinance number 6235 of 2022. That's an ordinance to deem property surplus and authorize the sale of surplus property owned by the parish of Caddo and to otherwise provide with respect thereto.
Move to advance ordinance number 6235 of 2022.
Second.
We have a motion to advance by Commissioner Johnson with a second from Commissioner Lazarus. Would you like to comment, Commissioner Johnson?
No, it is standard.
Okay. Commissioner Jackson?
yeah, the ordinance mentions Exhibit A, and I don't see any exhibits on here.
Is it?
All right,
So-
so,
When are we gonna get those?
Can you refresh your screen and see? We did add an exhibit to an item earlier today. If it doesn't come up, we'll follow up with Public Works and see if we can get that.
Okay. I think we need to.
does it come up?
Well, since it's a 2-reader, I'll be fine with it, but I do think we need to make sure we have that exhibit.
Thank you for pointing that out, Commissioner Jackson. Anything else, Commissioner Jackson?
Not at this time. Thank you, Mr.
All
President.
right. And Commissioner Hopkins came off the board because I guess he was going to raise the same issue. So if we can
Yes.
just make sure we get that addressed before we see this next and need to vote on it. But all that being said, let's have a vote to advance.
And that motion carries with 11 in support, none in opposition, and 1 absent. That brings us to the authorization of introduction of ordinance number 6236 of 2022. That's an ordinance requiring that all parish employees hired, appointed, or promoted to parish attorney, assistant parish administrator, CEO, department director, or commission clerk must be residents of Caddo Parish and otherwise provide with respect thereto. Now, this is an amendment to a previously adopted ordinance that you had that provides some additional language and clarification regarding the grandfathering language that was included.
Move to advance ordinance 6236 of 2022.
Second.
We had a motion from Commissioner Johnson, a second from whom? I'm sorry, Commissioner, second was from Commissioner Jackson. Commissioner Johnson, would you like to speak to this motion?
Yeah, this cleans up what we initially voted for, basically saying that the director, if they was already hired by a certain date, would be grandfathered in to be able to be a director, but the other positions would have to stay in Caddo Parish. That was already there, but when we voted, the language got changed, and so changing it back the way it should be with the intent of what we voted on.
So this, I just want clarification.
This cleans up the language in which we voted on with the intent and not what someone else interpreted it as.
Okay, so it's cleaning up the language, okay. Any, let's see, Commissioner Chavez.
Thank you, President. I think my question has been answered. Is it, Attorney Fraser, Section D, adding the addition of the word "and"? Is that the only difference?
It's emphasized, but actually, I don't think "and" is added. It's just stated another way, if that makes sense. It's not an addition. It's basically the same thing that you all voted on, which was what was not clear in the last amendment. So it grandfathers in the people that you intended to grandfather in. Whereas the language from the last one ended up being like nobody was subject to the amendment the way it was stated. So this fixes that problem.
You may have been out of job if you decided to move to Nebraska.
Do I now?
I said you'd be out of job if you moved to Nebraska.
I would, but if it stays the way it is now, I would.
You'd be all right?
I'd be all right.
Thank you, President.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Chavez. Commissioner Young.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to point out the typo in the title of this ordinance.
Just noted that.
In the word attorney. Thank you.
Thank you for your attention to that matter. Commissioner Hopkins.
I kind of like the way it was. That's all I have.
Okay. And seeing no one else on the board, let's vote to advance or not advance this item.
Okay, and that motion carries with 10 in support, 1 in opposition, and 1 absent. And that brings us to authorizing the introduction of ordinance number 6237 of 2022. That's an ordinance regarding an exchange of roadways with the Louisiana Department of Transportation and Development in connection with extending Louisiana 3276 to Louisiana 1, to authorize the exchange of certain portions of parish roads in return for certain portions of state highways, to authorize the parish administrator to execute agreements as necessary to accomplish that exchange, and to otherwise provide with respect thereto.
Move to send this to the Long Range Planning Committee.
We have a motion by Commissioner Jackson to extend this to the Long Range Planning Commission.
Second.
Second from Commissioner Chavez. Commissioner Jackson, would you care to speak on your motion?
Yeah, I have some questions that I do want to address with LADOTD, and I think the Long Range Planning Committee will be the place to do that.
Okay. Anyone else on the board? I'd just like, before we vote, can you guys, I mean, I've read the information, but can you guys give us some color and background on what this is all about here?
Yes, sir.
Tim?
Commissioners, the state has requested this action. As you all aware, that the highway from I-49 to the port is to preserve the I-69 future corridor. And the state policy is that if the state's going to take on a road and take on a parish road, they want to swap for a state road, and that's what's occurring here. This is a zero-sum gain for the parish as well as the state.
How about for the citizens of Caddo?
Pardon me?
Does it have any impact on landowners?
Yes, sir. There'll be some land acquisitions along the path
But
of the road.
that was going to happen one way or the other.
Yes, sir. But there's no adverse impact, as I believe, on the citizens. But this is to the future of the I-49 project. You know, it goes.
I-69.
I-69.
I'm sorry, I-69 project that goes up to Memphis, Tennessee, through parts of our parish.
Mr. Weaver?
I mean, do y'all have all the maps? Did y'all get
We've
that?
seen
I
them.
mean, we just
Yeah.
got it all today, though.
Yeah. I mean, this has been in the budget, you know, like our portion, y'all appropriated 1.75 million in 2021, or 500,000 and 1.7, so 2.25 million is the parish's portion, and it's, DeSoto Parish has a portion, and then the state, has a portion in this, so.
As well as support. As
So-
well as support.
Yeah, and we got the majority of the legislators, that was one of the requirements, to do this, project. But anytime, they do a project in the state, to keep their mileage the same, we had to come up with the mileage, to swap with them. So, we've been negotiating about a year with them, or over a year. And so we tried to pick some roads that were, not real heavily traveled, didn't have bridges on them. And, a lot of them are little service roads. We have one down on Barron Road that we already maintain. The state just didn't have it in their system. And then we have one in Box Road, which is in Chavez's area, and then all the rest of them are little short, roads up in Todd's area.
Okay,
So,
all right, thank you. Before you go, Commissioner Hopkins is on the board, I don't know.
No, and that was kind of my question. Y'all have looked at these roads, and you feel this is a fair trade?
yeah, they sent us the list the first time, and we didn't want to go along with that because they were wanting us to have some heavily truck roads with a lot of big bridges on them. So all these are low volume, like a lot of service type roads.
Well, I know for sure that the parish can probably maintain those portions of road better than the state has.
Oh yeah, and there any of them that are not in good condition, they're going to overlay them before.
They'll fix them before we take them.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Chavez.
Thank you, Chair. It sounds like we benefit in regards to the parish. I didn't know if Commissioner Jackson wanted to pull this back from long range. I don't know if there's any discussion needed in long range.
Yeah, I think the administrator, I'd like to have Mr. North or Kevin come down, and I've got some questions for him. My understanding from Dr. Wilson is Mr. North is out with a sickness right now, but I do want to have him come to get some clarity.
Yeah, he
Some
can probably
additional-
clarify, but I mean, a lot of this is coming from Baton Rouge.
But I got you, but we just got this, we just got the maps and stuff today, and I'm just asking us to do our due diligence, because I have some specific questions for David that I'd like to have vetted, some very technical questions that I'd like to have vetted.
All right, that's fine.
Is there, before you leave the podium, is there a time restraint on this?
I think what it was is they were trying to get some of this done so they could start the surveying portion of the project. So, and the port is heading this project up, for us. You got something there?
Yeah, I was going to tell the commissioners, this is a very complex project because we had to get every legislator in our delegation to approve this, and we've gotten approval from all the legislative delegation to do this particular project. Because I think they realize this is just, the process that the state has. They don't want to add any more roads to their system, so to balance things out, we had to swap roads. We've done this several times. We did it on the road in front of the Juvenile Detention Center. We did it on Southern Loop Highway and one road up north.
Right. There is, though, only not on this ordinance, but later on your agenda, you'll have a resolution
Yes.
that just clearly says that you'll consider an ordinance. The port is needing that resolution just for a grant that has to go in to get the additional funding, to ask for the additional funding by the 23rd of this month. But that resolution is stating that the commission would consider it by ordinance. Okay.
So I'm asking to postpone the ordinance, not the resolution.
Right.
Okay.
Just was addressing the time constraints.
So we have a motion to forward, a motion from Commissioner Jackson to forward this to long-range planning. Seeing no one else on the board?
President Mab, I still have the floor. If I could entertain one of my colleagues to make a substitute motion to allow for Commissioner Jackson's motion, but with the caveat that we move this forward so that we meet in the interim and do our due diligence, but it also moves forward so there's no time restraint.
Would someone like to make that motion?
I don't know that it's needed since the resolution
Right.
is
Just the
separate of the
resolution. Right.
ordinance.
Is he setting the ordinance to long range or the resolution?
Just the ordinance.
Okay. All right, then I'll wait.
Okay. All right, voting on Commissioner Jackson's motion. Mr. Clerk?
Commissioner Burrell?
All right. right, that motion carries with 9 in support, 2 in
Mr.
opposition, and 1 absent.
1 minute,
Ms.
Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Clerk, Mr. Brown which no, I meant yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so for the record, Commissioner Burrell's voting machine, he intended to push the yes button. It looks like it registered as a no, but that should be 10 in support, 1 in opposition, and 1 absent. Thank you for stating that.
All right, thank you very much.
And that'll move us along to the next item, which is authorizing the introduction of ordinance number 6238 of 2022. That's an ordinance adopting section 32-62 of the Code of Ordinances prohibiting possession or carriage in a motor vehicle on public roads of firearms with a magazine capable of holding more than 20 rounds of ammunition, to provide for penalties for violations to the ordinance, and to otherwise provide with respect thereto, from Commissioner Johnson. And this one is one of the items that has had an updated attachment. So if you refresh your electronic agenda, you will be sure that you have the most current version of that attachment.
Move to advance ordinance 6238 as it was amended before the meeting.
We have a motion to advance by Commissioner Johnson, a second from whom? Second from Commissioner Epperson. Commissioner Johnson, would you like to speak on your resolution?
Yes, as a means to put something out as a policy with the increase of drive-by shootings, juvenile activities that's been going on in Caddo Parish. This ordinance basically says that if there is a gun within a motor vehicle, that the magazine has to be disengaged from the gun if it has more than 20 rounds. This basically kind of slows down the drive-by shootings. And then if the police has surveillance information knowing that something is about to happen and they know the vehicles that could be possibly involved, they can pull them over before the actual shooting happens and use this as a means to arrest and or fine and confiscate the gun. That's all.
Can you clarify how this was modified from the previous version?
So the previous version basically said that you could not have a gun over 20 rounds in a vehicle. That was not my intent. My intent is to say that it could not be loaded in a vehicle, because say like you go into the gun range. Well, you might take something like that to the gun range, or you're going hunting and you're gonna go hunting, and so basically if you're hunting or you go into the gun range, it doesn't need to be loaded anyway. So why have a loaded gun with over 20 rounds in a vehicle if you don't intend to use it?
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Commissioner Chavez.
Thank you, Chair. On the third whereas, it says the Caddo Parish Commission is authorized to address sunk gun. What does that mean? What is SUNC?
I think that was a typo. I'm not sure.
That was actually removed from a previous version, and when they sent the updated version today, I think it probably didn't get re-removed from this new version. So we'll strike that.
So just remove that whole third whereas?
No, it's just the SUNC. Otherwise, I think the rest of that
Okay.
stands.
Address some. It should be some, or just take it out.
It doesn't matter. Sunk is gone.
Attorney
Sunk is
Frazier,
removed.
am I understanding this that you cannot have a firearm with the addition of a 20-round magazine in your vehicle, or you cannot have a 20-round magazine in your vehicle, but you may have a gun that has the available capacity of any nominal round magazine?
Basically, the intention of this, or what it will do, is you cannot have, you would not be able to have a gun on public roads that has the 20 round or more capacity loaded. You can have the gun, but your ammunition would need to be separate from your vehicle. From your gun, sorry.
That's it.
Anything else, Commissioner Chavez?
I'll wait. Go ahead.
Okay. Commissioner Lazarus.
Attorney Frazier, were you able to take a look at that ordinance?
I
revised
was
statute?
able to take a look at it, but I was not able to reach a conclusion, Commissioner. I do not think, I think the information or the devil is in the details, as they say, whether or not somebody's gonna have a concealed carry permit, and I haven't had time to go through all of those.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Telfair.
Thank you, Mr. President. So the way I understand it is that we are limiting the magazine capacity for every firearm that we are carrying, that I am carrying on a parish roadway, to less than 20 rounds per magazine. Is that what I'm understanding?
No. You can carry those that have 20 rounds or above, but your ammunition needs to be separate from your weapon.
Well, I'm sorry. When I say magazine, I am carrying, my magazine is always in my gun. So that was my point here. And that we're okay with me having multiple weapons in my car that have 10 rounds, 20 rounds of 21 rounds loaded in my magazine.
As long as they're not engaged and loaded in the weapon.
Okay, and so in not engaging in the weapon itself minimizes my opportunity to protect myself without actually physically loading the weapon. Is that correct?
You know, I'm not a gun person. I'll let you.
Well, I'm just throwing it out there. Is
Yeah,
that
y'all.
an unloaded weapon for my personal protection does me no good. So, thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner Telfair. Commissioner Jackson.
I just want to, may I ask the author a question?
Sure.
Is this in response to the calls and the pleas that we've received over the last couple of weeks to gun violence in our community?
This is a plea from years.
Well,
I'm just coming up with something.
But the swell, the swell has been in the last couple of weeks.
Oh, no. That didn't impact what I'm trying to do.
What you
No.
said? Well, I just think that, a couple of weeks ago, we had folks down here, and maybe I'm not asking the question right. We had a lot of folks down here asking, what can we do to address some of the violence in our community? And I don't see anything that limits a person's ability to carry a weapon in this. Does this limit anybody's ability to carry a weapon?
No, it doesn't.
This doesn't limit anybody's right to carry a weapon. All this does, from my reading of this, is it basically says it can't be loaded. And so if you're going to participate in lawful recreational activity, then you load that when you get to that activity.
Correct.
And that's how I perceive this. So I think we may be, or some folks may be trying to catch something or find something that's not there. But I just simply read this as, if you have the right to carry your weapon, but if you're going to engage in a lawful activity, then you do that when you get to that activity. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Commissioner Jackson. Commissioner Johnson.
So, thank you, Mr. President. So the last couple of gun ordinances I tried to put before the commission, they all failed because people came down saying they had a right to bear arms. So in this one, I don't care what you got at home. You can have a 50 caliber cannon at your house, don't care. But if you're on a public road, you shouldn't have a gun with over 20 rounds loaded in your vehicle. For what purpose? Now, wherever you get where you're going, yeah, load it in, do what you gotta do with it at that point, which should be either hunting or it should be going to a range to practice with it. What I've seen in most of the shootings in our city, nobody goes there with a 6-shooter. So if you want personal protection and you want it loaded, you got a 6-shooter, you got an 18-shooter. So it doesn't matter But I'm just saying a number 20 and above, because at that point in time, you can fire off multiple rounds real quick. And so if you got a 9mm, most of them are 18 and under, depending on the size of it. If you have one that's a larger caliber, the number's gonna drop a little bit more. Now, you can get those extended magazines, but at the same time, is it really necessary or not for self-defense? If you can shoot, you can shoot. If you can't shoot, then maybe you do need multiple bullets in a magazine. But at that same point, I've seen where people have had 100 rounds and still miss the intended target. So this is just something to slow down or to give the police more teeth to be able to catch individuals if they're actually doing surveillance like they should be doing on social media, and can be more proactive than reactive. You know, we sit back and say, well, police can't do this and that, but if they're actually studying what's going on in our community, they can be proactive with this. They can stop that vehicle before it happens and then issue what they need to do to confiscate the gun or imprison the person, depending on if it already has a warrant for their arrest. This is something that we need to try to do. You can vote it down if you want to, but at least I can look all the citizens in Caddo Parish in the face and say I tried to do something to help. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. Commissioner Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just kind of had the concern of, as far as you know, someone needing to protect themselves. I mean, I am a gun owner myself, believe in the Second Amendment right to own guns, but I also believe to do that responsibly. And so I want to make it clear what Commissioner Johnson is trying to accomplish is not to say that you can't own a gun, can't carry a gun, can't possess a gun, but police officers, to my understanding, don't have that many rounds on them at a time, and they're law enforcement. They're not carrying anything that has more than 20 rounds on their person. So I don't see why a citizen would need to do so, excuse me, on a public road on a regular basis. I frequent the gun range myself. I don't load when I'm taken to the gun range until I get there. It's not necessary for me to have it loaded. It's not necessary for me to protect myself to ride around with something that has that many rounds. And so I think we need to send a message of responsible gun ownership, and that's part of being responsible. And having something in the car that could potentially, you know, be used in a drive-by, to me is just, or stolen, is just simply not necessary. And I don't see why anybody would need to ride around with several guns in the car that have more than 10 rounds in it, loaded at the same time. You know, I mean, how many guns are you going to shoot at the same time if you're a responsible gun owner and you're going to the gun range? You don't need that loaded in your car. And so that's all this is saying. Let's not make something more than what it is. Let's just take it for what it is and support something that to me makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Jones. Commissioner Young.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to ask a question to legal. Attorney Frazier, Commissioner Lazarus cited a portion of the Louisiana Revised Statutes to me. I don't have that citation with me now, but it appeared to reserve all forms of gun regulation to the state legislature. Could you comment on that for us?
Basically, Commissioner, it says that the local governments cannot pass anything that is more restrictive than the state laws, which is why when he asked me earlier, I said it's going to come down to a matter of what's allowed by the carry permits.
I'm sorry, it comes down to what?
I haven't had an opportunity to look at all of the variances with the carry permits. It's my understanding, and I haven't had a chance to look this up recently, but it's my understanding that you can open carry, but that when you open carry, you can't have it loaded. You can have it loaded or unloaded with concealed carry. So that's what I need to verify, because it may end up that this applies to it's okay for this to apply to people who are doing an open hearing.
Okay. I would like to request from you, or from Attorney Bernstein, however you want to divide it up, a brief about the state of our authority to pass this rule before we vote on it finally on Thursday.
Can we get it? Well, this is an ordinance, so it's
Oh, right, before we vote on it finally 2 weeks from.
Okay, and can we get it down to a memo as opposed to
Memo
just-
is fine, sure.
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you, that's
Commissioner
everything.
Young. Commissioner Chavez.
Attorney Fraser, this ordinance, will this take place within city limits, or does this only relative to people outside of the city limits of Shreveport?
Only in unincorporated areas outside of the various municipalities.
I'm also working with city council to also pass something very similar. Same language if we can get it passed.
Okay, I just wanted to, I wanted to clear that up. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, well, I'll remind everyone that this vote today is just to advance it. We maybe can get some additional research done and get some more insights on the matter, especially with respect to how it foots up with the state legislation. Any other questions or comments here? Seeing none, let's vote to advance or not advance.
One other thing.
We got Commissioner Burrell.
One other question, Mr. Chairman. I just caught something that the attorney said, which is from the state level, that they passed a statute that said local government cannot be more restricted than state government. That is what I understood you to say.
That is correct.
Is that only on this particular issue, or is that beyond that? Because we have some issues where the local government need to be more restrictive than the state.
The state statute that we're discussing only applies to gun possession.
Okay, that had to be an exception. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. All right, the board is ready to vote. Vote on what, this is a vote on forwarding it for consideration.
And that motion carries with 7 in support and 4 in opposition and 1 absent. And that brings us to the next item today, which is the resolution number 31 of 2022, a resolution regarding a joint project with the Louisiana Department of Transportation and Development for extension of Louisiana 3276 to LA1 to commit the parish to fulfillment of certain obligations regarding transfer of parish roads and state highways in connection with that joint project, and otherwise provide with respect thereto. This is the companion resolution to the ordinance that you
Move to advance resolution 31 of 2022.
Second.
And the special resolutions that follow.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Johnson to advance resolution number 31 of 2022 and the special resolution.
Resolutions.
Resolutions.
That follows.
Okay. Which includes the resolution of pediatric stroke awareness, the resolution of National Maritime Day, and the resolution of recognition and appreciation for William Samuel Davis. Would you like to comment on your
And also Martha Thomas.
Martha Carter.
Oh, thank you.
And
the one that we did earlier.
and the addition,
Right.
student loan,
The student loan,
Okay.
32.
the 15.
All right, so we have a motion to forward all of those items, including resolution 32, I think it was called.
Yeah, resolution 31 and 32, and the special resolutions that follow, which is 11, 11, 11, 11, 12, 11, 13, 11, 14.
Okay. Commissioner Hopkins.
Yeah, I'd like a little discussion on 32 before we send it or whatever we're
Yeah.
gonna do.
Would you
The intent and what this will do and why.
would you consider a
Did everyone not get a copy of this?
I got a copy of it, but I just now got it. I'd like to hear a little bit about your intent.
Well, let's, hold on, Commissioner Epperson, hold on a second. So might we make a friendly amendment to your resolution, Commissioner Johnson, to?
Well, I think he just said he wanted to have some discussion before we voted, so it wasn't to take it out, but just to have some
I
discussion.
mean, if we want to remove it and vote on it separately, then we can discuss it, that's fine. But I think there ought to be some discussion, because I know what we got, but we just got it. So instead of sending something we're going to vote on Thursday, we ought to have a discussion about it today.
All right.
What did you want to discuss, Mr. Oscar?
Well, I'll make a substitute motion that we remove Resolution 32 from the other items that we previously addressed. All right, so we have a motion from the chair, second by Commissioner Young, to remove Resolution 32 from the previously cited list to advance to Thursday.
I'll second that.
We already have a second from
Okay.
Commissioner Young. All right, so Commissioner Chavez.
I was gonna make that motion. You can remove it.
Sorry, I didn't see you on the board. Commissioner Jackson.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to take 31 out and take it by itself.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Jackson to take 31 and 32.
I guess.
Mr. Chairman,
I mean, I was fine with them all going.
I just removed my motion. We hit each one separately.
I was fine with all of them, but
Okay.
we're
Do
gonna,
all that.
Commissioner Johnson has removed his motion, so we can take each separately. I see Commissioner Jackson, you done?
yeah, I'm done.
Dr. Wilson, do you have something relevant? You good? Okay, so Mr. Clerk, we'll come back to the agenda and take the agenda items one at a time.
So it's my understanding that now we have, is there currently though a motion, because I believe there was on the table before this, a motion to authorize resolution number 31 of 2022.
There is not one.
Okay, so at this point, everything's off the table. So we are
Everything's off the table, and we're back to
we are
item.
just back at I'll read authorizing resolution 31 of 2022. It is the companion piece to the item that you heard earlier regarding the road exchange from Louisiana 3276 to LA1.
Okay,
So move for advance.
we have a motion from Commissioner Chavez, a second from the chair to advance resolution number 31. Any comments, Commissioner Chavez?
No, President.
Commissioner Jackson, you're on the board.
Yeah, I think y'all need to update the file, because the file says I-49 and it should be I-69. So I think we
Thank
need
you,
to
Commissioner
update
Jackson.
that file.
Anything else?
That's it, thank you.
Commissioner Johnson.
I was gonna say the same thing, that it says I-49.
In the body?
No, in the-
No, it's the file name, the attachment file
There it
name.
is, I see, yeah.
We'll switch it.
Okay, any other comments? Seeing none, let's vote, please. Vote to advance resolution number 31, or not.
Okay, that motion carries with 10 in support, 1 in opposition, and 1 absent. That brings us to the next item, which is to authorize a special resolution proclaiming May as Pediatric Stroke Awareness Month. 32 actually comes after the special resolution, since it was an agenda addition.
Oh, okay, all right.
We can take it up if somebody wants to make a motion to take it out of order, but we added it as
Carry on, Mr. Clerk.
11:15. So 11.11 is authorizing special resolution proclaiming May as Pediatric Stroke Awareness Month.
I'd like to move to Englobo and advance items 11.11, 11.12, 11.13, and 11.14.
Second.
I thought we were on.
Mr. Chair, point of information. I think that motion is moot since we voted to vote on all of these independent.
That's a different motion.
I
It's a
was gonna
separate
ask-
motion.
I was going to ask the parliamentarian, but he's involved in this debate. Ms. Frazier, can you give us guidance here whether we can now, in Globo, once we voted to take these independently?
Sure you can.
I think we did, didn't we?
Mm-hmm. It's a new motion.
Didn't vote to take them together.
He removed his.
Ah, I see, that's right, that's right. Well, but Ms. Frazier, I've asked, so what are your thoughts there?
I mean, no, you can englobo them now.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, so we have an proposal by Commissioner Young to englobo, I've lost my place on
11.
12, 13, and 14.
11, 11, 11, 12, 11, 13, 11, 14.
11:15.
Second.
There's not an 11, 15.
It is. We
we
voted
have-
that as the agenda.
And that's a resolution.
Get out.
Well, not that one though. Just
Point
just
of order.
just do 14.
Point of order.
can't fault him for trying.
We were in resolutions, and we voted on 31. We still have a resolution to take up before we move to special recognition and stuff.
And what I said earlier, but
As an agenda addition, it would come at the end.
Since it was an agenda addition.
It was an agenda addition. It comes in under resolutions.
If it had been added on Thursday, it would,
And
because we have
if
resolutions.
it's
as a
a
Well,
separate
we've got
section.
it. We've got it under control.
Okay.
Let's just. I mean, that might be true technically, but we've got it under control, and it's all about
Okay.
operating the meeting.
All right.
So, I think we understand. We are voting on the on the special resolutions.
Who was the second?
Commissioner Chavez.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we have a vote to englobo and advance all 4 special resolutions, not including resolution 32.
How come not 32?
Well, the system just went down.
system done went down.
The system.
got some school debt?
Yep.
System went down.
If
Gotta
we
recover
could get
Roll call.
a roll call vote, if everybody's okay with that?
Gotta do
While
roll
we get
call.
the system restarted?
Okay.
Okay, so everybody's all right with that. Okay, Commissioner Hopkins.
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson.
Yes.
Commissioner Young.
Yes.
Commissioner Burrell.
Yeah.
Commissioner Jones.
Yes.
Commissioner Gage Watts is absent. Commissioner Taliaferro.
Yes.
Commissioner Atkins.
Yes.
Commissioner Chavez.
Yes.
Commissioner Lazarus.
Yes.
And Commissioner Epperson.
Yes.
All right, that motion carries with 11 in support and 1 absent, 0 in opposition, and brings us to the agenda addition, which is Resolution 32 of 2022, which is the item that was a resolution to call upon the federal government to urgently address the student loan crisis and enact a plan to cancel student loan debt and begin the transition to education as a public good and otherwise providing with respect thereto.
Move for advancement to Thursday.
Second.
We had a motion from Commissioner Epperson, a second from, I couldn't tell, it was several of you, Commissioner Jackson,
Either one.
to advance this issue to Thursday. Commissioner Epperson, would you like to speak on your motion?
Yes, sir. Student loan debt in America up to this point is about $1.6 trillion and growing. It's been a burden upon our educational system since 2005. The balance is highly indebted. The majority of the people over the age of 60. There are other European countries whereas higher education is completely free. Therefore, their students and their parents aren't burdened with debt once they graduate, if they graduate. Oftentimes, about 40% of the persons that incur the student loans do not even attain their degrees or their certificates, and they are still burdened with that high amount of debt. Even upon successful completion of college, the high burden of debt impedes the male as well as the female students, whereas they start out in debt, an average debt of around $20,000. How would we pay for it? Of course we can pay for it. And let me step back once. This is directly under the purview of the federal government, Congress, and the Department of Education. How do we pay for it? We just got out of a war in Afghanistan for 20 years, averaging about $350 million per day. We have recently granted an insurmountable amount of money in order of defending Ukraine. There was a substantial tax break to probably the 1% of America's most wealthiest persons within the last 3 years. And this is certainly something that will be an economic boost in the arm to our nation if these parents and these students can be relieved of that debt. Those amount of funds can be contributed into our economy, such as buying cars, being able to buy homes, and other things. So I would ask that you move this forward to Thursday, and that ends my discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Epperson. Commissioner Chavez. Oops, sorry. Commissioner Hopkins, you still on the board?
No, I'm getting I got what I needed.
Okay, Commissioner Chavez.
Thank you, President. As a veteran and an Army soldier whose son also joined the National Guard and then used the GI Bill and the tuition exemption to pay for his Louisiana Tech College, I caution us, because the recruiters in this area and across America use tuition exemption as a means to boost our military and for our young men and women to join the armed forces and get their college covered. I fear what would happen to our ranks if our tuition exemption was taken away. So I think we have to consider that as well. I don't know what we would do to our recruit numbers if we took that away from a state level and giving them the affordability or the availability to do that. I just know that we haven't thought about that side of the coin, and we may need to address that. Thank you, President.
Thank you, Commissioner Chavez. Commissioner Vice President Burrell.
Well, I never thought about it from that perspective, but the other side of that coin is we're using this as an incentive to send your kids to war. I don't see that as a trade-off. I mean, I understand what you're saying, and we've been doing it for some time, but looking at it from another perspective, it's basically putting youngsters in a position to make a decision to go to war or to join the military, in which, whether you want to call it go to war or not, that's a trade-off. That's a hell of a trade-off. You know, just thinking about it from perspective that you're presenting. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Burrell. Commissioner Chavez, you back on the board?
Yes, President. I just want to make a comment on that. Actually went off to the military. Not everybody needs college. Nowadays, we need to focus more on trade school, on welding, on HVAC. I personally joined the military because I dropped out of high school and I needed an education. And I left the military working on satellite communication systems and started a business. My son did the same thing. I don't necessarily think people join to go to war. There's many trades. I can tell you countless people that have gone to the military, got their nursing degree, never saw combat. As a war veteran myself, I volunteered to drive the front gunship and go into combat. I didn't have to. My job entitled me to sit back in the air-conditioned tent, drink lemonade, and look at satellite systems all day long. So we don't have to necessarily say that it's either go to college or go to war. There's so many trade schools that come out of the military that, again, I caution us to not forget that valuable sector where we're also allowing our students, our children, to join trade school, and that we should look at that side of the coin. Thank you, President.
Mr. Chairman, I support what you're saying. Don't get me wrong, because I was going into the military once I finished my schooling, because there were no jobs out there for me during the time that I got out of school. But I don't want this to be a trade-off per se, as an incentive to go to war, put your life on the line, because when you go to the military, you're going there with the idea of the possibility of
being in
going
harm's
to
way.
war. Yeah, to put your life in harm's way, which is very noble. But somehow in this discussion, I'm just having I'm just having an issue with the way we are pushing this issue. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Epperson.
Okay, is that someone under me that has not spoken?
Yeah. Well,
Who was it?
no, I'm not sure.
Yeah,
Okay, Commissioner Hopkins?
I guess my other questions is, Will this cover those that get associate degrees, undergraduate degrees? What about those that go to medical school? Will that cover that also?
Yes.
Yes? Okay, what about
Every-
trade school?
Vocational schools are included. You'd be surprised at how many persons and students have been scammed with these truck driving academies and these IT schools and fraudulent schools that's been in place, but they are still burdened with that debt. All levels you're entitled to borrow. 2-year colleges, vocational, trade schools, all of them.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hopkins. Commissioner Jackson.
Nothing.
Now you back where you,
Right, okay.
Commissioner Epperson.
Let me state that I too went in the military probably before some of you were born. I went in from 1965 to 1968. The thought on my mind was not education. The reason that I went in was I felt there was a patriotic duty. Plus I was getting away from the social ills that plagued this nation at that period of time, where you couldn't sleep wherever you wanted to, you couldn't eat where you wanted to, you couldn't get a job where you wanted to. That was my reason. And once I got in, I found out those amenities, which I did use the GI Bill for my education, partly once I got out. And let me also emphasize that the military, less than 0.5% of this nation serves. And we don't take any and everybody. You have to have a certain score on that ASVAB test. So that don't mean because you think you want an education, you got 10 million people gonna go and join up. No, we don't take you that way. You have to have a certain academic, mental skills, and we weed you out, brother, once you get in there. You're not gonna fall. Very few of you are not gonna fall through the crack. So that's not true whatsoever. You know, it's not gonna hurt the military whatsoever. Vocational schools are included, technical schools, 2-year colleges, private schools, all of them are included. And this isn't anything that's gonna hurt this nation when we can spend trillions of dollars with other countries taking care of them, and then burden 43 million people with $1.6 trillion of debt because of what our academic institutions has transpired into, cash cows. So I would urge you to forward this on, and I think your constituents will be highly proud of you doing this. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Epperson. Commissioner Young.
Thank you, Mr. President. This resolution is about giving advice to another government, and usually I'm pretty cautious about those. In order for me to want to vote for this on Thursday, I would like for it to include a little more reference to Caddo Parish and our people here directly, so that we can make a plausible claim that it is our business. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Commissioner Young. Commissioner Talaferro.
Thank you, Mr. President. I mean, it's my understanding that when anyone gets, first of all, education is a commodity. It's a product. We think nothing of going and spending 50 grand, 60 grand to buy a car, or $120,000 or $200,000 to buy a house. That is the part of debt that we're willing to assume to get something of greater value over a long period of time. Education is just one of those things. It is of greater value over a longer period of time, in which that's what the student hopes for. There are a variety of programs out there to help students with their education, to get grants and other things, scholarships and so forth, by a majority of the colleges that people do go to. You can get scholarships and so forth to help with your education. I think when we forgive a student debt, it's not hurting the government, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong if anybody has, if I am mistaken, but these are private lending institutions that actually lend this money out. And so to just blanketly forgive debt, no?
A lot of it's federal loans.
Okay.
From the federal taxpayers.
Okay, then I stand corrected. Thank you so much.
Guaranteed.
Say again?
Or guaranteed.
Got it, okay. Anyway, again, education is a commodity, and I think that, with the GI Bill and so forth, I have the GI Bill. I didn't use a lot of mine, but I transferred it to my daughter who is using it now. It's a benefit. I concur with my Commissioner Epperson is that, of course, when I went in, it wasn't anything but to serve my country. And that was a benefit that was offered and the benefit that I used. I don't think it's any different than a benefit that we give anyone to entice or to promote them joining an organization, because we all sign up for organizations, that have great benefits, and this is just one of those benefits. I wouldn't associate it with war. When we all sign on the dotted line as a military member, we're signing a blank check for the United States citizens to send us anywhere in the world to do the business of protecting our country. So that's all, Mr. President. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner Talfaro. Commissioner Johnson, you on the board?
Yes, I am. I'm looking at Resolution 32, and I don't know how we get on the tangent of military and all of that. And it's basically talking about people who go to college and accrue a loan. I didn't go in the military. I got a college loan. So, how do we go way over there when we talking about the general population of people going to college and having a loan? And basically this is to ask the federal government to forgive them of their loan. It's not nothing that's new. It's been talked about. If you watched the news the other day, while at college, there was a lot of graduating seniors that got their loans forgiven by a anonymous donor. So the impact of student loan today compared to when I went to college it has grew tremendously. You got people who basically their student loans are probably like 5 digits to 6 digits, and depending on where they went. I'm talking about just a public institution, not a private, just a public institution. And having that type of burden, trying to get a new home, trying to start a family, trying to buy a vehicle is a burden. And so people leave markets like us, and it's circling back to this promoting Caddo Parish. They leave this market to go to another market to make more money because this market is demised. So they go to another market. So they leave Caddo Parish, go over to Dallas, go to Houston, go to Atlanta in order to make more money. But they still got the same loan. The loan's still gonna follow you wherever you go. But they're seeking to make more money in order to pay off the loan, in order to be able to live a good life or a decent life with a degree. So, this is nothing but a resolution to ask the federal government. It's not saying we demand you to do this. It just said consider it. We're requesting you to consider this. That's all it is. And we spend 30 minutes, 40 minutes talking about consider something to the federal government. Either they're going to look at it and say, okay, this board made a pretty good recommendation to us, or they're going to say, we don't want to do this. Throw it in the trash. That's all it is.
Understand.
We are not committing any dollars. They're not committing any dollars. It's just a simple, would you consider this from this body to do away with student loans? That's all. That's all I have.
All right, Commissioner Jackson.
Yeah, I just want to note that in little itty bitty Lincoln Parish, a small town, I don't even know if they classify as a city yet, but a small town named Ruston gave folks in the last year or two, they offered up $10,000 just to come move to Ruston. $10,000 to move back to Ruston. And they were looking for folks within a certain age demographic. And they particularly, if you went and looked at it, they particularly were looking for folks who were alumnus of either Louisiana Tech or Grambling State University or had graduated from one of the high schools there. And if you drill down the message in that, what they were basically offering was, if you move here, we'll give you this $10,000 to pay up, either pay down or pay off whatever debt you may essentially have. And so I think a resolution simply asking Congress to take a look at this, I don't think it's any sweat off our brows, it's no skin off our back. It's simply asking them to take a look at this. And so I was gonna call for the question amendment because I didn't think it was gonna get this in depth, but I still think that sometimes we try to insert things that are not there. When we talk about the housing market, you know, people who can get their student loan debt under control, they can buy homes and make Shreveport and Caddo Parish their home. So that means they can put roots down here. You know, they can go get a business. Those are the trickle-down effects of student loan forgiveness. They can go get that business loan that has been holding them back. So it's not so much consumer, looking at it from a consumer perspective. Let's look at this from a business perspective as well. How can this help have a ripple effect in the economy from an economics? And that's how I view student loan debt, is from an economics perspective. I was able to sign up for the public service student loans discharge because I worked with a rural hospital that served rural constituencies. Everybody won't get that opportunity. So I think at some point we have to have a conversation about the economic aspect of student loan forgiveness. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Commissioner Jackson. All right, seeing no one else on the board, let's vote.
All right, and that motion carries with 8 in support and 3 in opposition, 1 absent to advance that item. And that brings us to communiques and committee reports.
Okay, anyone else on the board with communiques or committee reports? Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Dr. Wilson, where are we with the welcome signs? Are we breaking ground or ready to cut some ribbon, or what are we trying to do?
While we're waiting on that, let me just inject something. I'd like to ask the commissioners to please not rush off after communiques, because we do have one citizen's comment for the end of the meeting. Sorry, go ahead, Commissioner Johnson.
Commissioner Johnson, they are preparing to break ground on the end of the month. Everything is ready, materials have started to come in, so it shouldn't be long. They've got the permits done, so it's just end of the contract is 1st of July, so it'll be complete by the 1st of July.
Thank you.
So it's rolling, just taking a little bit of time.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Second of all is the bank that utilizes our money, Origin Bank. Can we get a representative to come down here to see what they're doing with the money to help the community? I mean, they hold a lot of parish money, and I think a part of that are some questions, if I can remember right. I think some commissioners asked about some community involvement with the bank, and I want to see what type of community involvement have they been doing to hold that amount of money. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Johnson. Commissioner Epperson.
Glad you asked it. Maybe I missed it, but didn't we used to vote on what we call a fiscal agent? Is that what that is? Do we still do that? I could have
No,
missed it.
official bank, I don't know what they want to call
Well, we used to call it a fiscal agent, didn't we? In the day, Ms. Brown?
Yes, it's called the fiscal agent bank.
Right. And that's what you're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
You
we
all
don't- We don't
selected.
vote on that anymore?
No, you still do it. It's in the current contract with Origin.
So how long is that contract?
It's usually, I want to say 3 years with an extension, so it goes for about 4 to 5 years. I'll have to look to see where we are in the current contract.
Okay. All right. If you would, let us know that Thursday, please.
Sure.
Okay, and, Mr. Young, what's the name of that program? You state what, relocate Caddo? What, the program I asked about?
Well, I just called it relocate to Caddo in that sentence that I spoke. I don't know that it has a name, but I know that
Oh.
Crystal Beecham has been working on it.
Okay, but I know, but didn't we do an ordinance? What was the ordinance?
I
We
don't
did-
think the
oh, okay.
ordinance specified a name for a
Okay,
program.
well, anyway, would more signage be applicable with some of that funding? Because we do have some other ingresses and egresses to the parish that it would look nice to have some signage on. Would
Yes,
that
sir.
be something that could be?
Yeah, that's yet to be determined, Commissioner Epperson. But I'm quite sure that may be part of the advertising campaign, because you don't want to advertise it here. You got to be in another state. Like, for example, like you see in Texas, they, well, in Louisiana, Texas is recruiting people to come to Texas, but they put the signs in Louisiana. So we would have to do the same thing. Because after all, you don't want to put a sign in Louisiana for folks to stay here. We want to put one somewhere else for them to come here, right? So all that be part of the major overall program that we come up with. It's a marketing plan that had to be created, and the best way to carry that out, and where at specific, nationally, regionally, that yet to be determined, but we're headed in that direction.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner Epperson. Commissioner Jackson?
Thank you. Dr. Wilson, do we have a status on, or Ms. Bryan, whoever can, do we have a status on those organizations who may have, or whatever projects, I won't say organizations, but whatever projects or initiatives that we approved ARP funding for, but has not been the Treasury rules or guidelines? Because I think, if we say we're going to wait until Treasury promulgate the rules, y'all know they're going to promulgate the rules often.
Right.
They're gonna, even when they put out the final rule, they're going to change the final rule, right?
Yeah.
So do we have a status? Because I think we do need to move at some point.
Right, so we have two things. We have consultants looking at the actual.
Okay.
One consultant, we've signed the agreement, and they're reviewing those, and those that are housing. The other, we're in the process of signing a contract. And once we have those, we'll review the other list. Second issue is we haven't actually received the second tranche of money. And so to really know how much we can pay for some of these projects and whether or not they actually can go forward, because some of them need the entire appropriation to continue forward. We at least need to get the second tranche of money, which we haven't received yet. We're expecting it any day. The indication was that you'd get it 1 year from the first tranche, which was May 2021. So we were expecting it in May 2022. We haven't received it yet, but we are going forward with looking at the various, we just have various types of projects that we're looking at, and we're hoping to get that contract signed and get that going so we can know the status of some of these.
So we can't even do cooperative endeavors at this particular time? Does that prevent us from putting cooperative endeavors in place?
I'll defer to legal, but yes, we have to be able to know, can we actually sign an agreement for the projects that they've asked for? If it's not eligible, then we can't sign an agreement for it. Right. If we did not choose the projects in the correct manner, there may be situations where we should have actually requested proposals on some of the items. So if we didn't choose the projects in the correct manner, we may have to go back to the drawing board and report to you all that you can do this type of project, but you may have to actually competitively bid it and choose the type of project. So there's some just other things, various issues that we've come across that we're facing that may affect some of the projects that we have on
And I'm glad you bring that point up about having to bid it out. Did that came from my understanding, that came from the legislative audit? Is that state rule, or is that Treasury's rule?
That is rules based on federal guidelines when you receive federal funds.
Okay.
When you have to seek
Procurement.
proposals. Right.
Okay. So it sounds like you almost have the contractor to vet it, the consultant to vet the projects.
That's correct.
Correct.
Y'all almost there.
Yes.
Okay. And then from there, it'll be well, from there, I guess you will figure out what can go to a cooperative endeavor at that point?
Correct.
Okay. All right, I just know some folks are continuing to ask, and I hadn't sent them over late. I haven't sent them over lately because I've just kind of been busy, but I know I'm getting questions about what's the
No,
status.
yes,
and all that.
we're getting questions as
Okay.
well, about the status and the fact that,
Okay. And then what about the normal NGO economic development process? I had somebody say that they hadn't gotten,
That's moving forward.
okay. So they're getting their
They-
contract?
No, I don't, not that I'm aware of.
Okay. I think some of them don't know that they're supposed to, if my understanding, I think they don't know that they're supposed to invoice the parish to be paid out. Now, I
If they've
think,
gotten an agreement, that letter says that and gives the number and the
Yeah.
procedure.
for whatever reason, I don't think they ever read that. I don't know why. But don't we have this problem every year, right?
Yeah, well, we have someone working it too, like a full-time job.
Right. I just, for whatever reason, I just don't think the organizations ever read it, because I know it comes up all the time where they're supposed to invoice the parish. And then for the fiscal agent, what I would like to also know is, and I'm sure they'll be able to provide this, is the CRA, the amount of investment that they've worked with CDFIs. And I know Carter is the CDFI here, but I do believe we did. CDFI. And I do believe that there was some agreement with Carter or something, that they were gonna work with Carter. But I would like to get an update from them. I hadn't heard about it in a while, but I do know that there was something there. That's it for me. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Jackson. Seeing no one else on the board, let's advance, Mr. Clerk.
Okay. That brings us to citizens' comments, where citizens are asked to address the commission, can fill out a comment card and return to me here in the box. Citizen comments are limited to 3 minutes for late arrivals, and I believe we have received one.
Ms. Veronica Wright, please come up. Thank you for coming down to the commission, Ms. Wright. We appreciate you coming to see us today. Please let us know what's on your mind.
Well, I want to speak on behalf of this juvenile system that y'all got in place that's totally ridiculous. Okay, bond is set too high for juveniles. Reasoning why, I don't know. If you have leg monitors in place, or if they're at home with their parents, I don't see why they couldn't, come home on an OR, or, it's just, the bond is just ridiculous, too high for juveniles. And another thing is, I don't understand why juveniles are being sent to CCC at a juvenile age in a population with adults. You're thinking your child going there to be safe? No, it's not safe. My son been attacked twice by 2 inmates and the guards, so everything's being swept under the rug, kept quiet. But for me as a parent to lay eyes on my child and he's bruised up and supposed to be protected, it's not good. And then another thing, you want to arrest parents for their children not being in school, or you beating them, but it's happening in the system. My son have been educated for a whole year. He's just been sitting there a whole year. Why? Bond's too high. Me as a single parent, can't bail him out. And I think that really need to be addressed, all the way around the board. I just want my child released to me, if leg monitor or whatever. And then if the child being sent to CCC, they should have privilege to even visit every day, or, giving 2 visitor days. They don't have that. I have to visit my child once a week. The adults get to visit, maybe 2-3 times a week. My son can't even get counseled by his pastor. Everything is like shut down. It's like nothing. But for my child to be feared for his life when he's supposed to be protected at a adult facility, and it's not, I think it's no good. I don't think they should get to go to CCC until they at least turn 18, because they are not being protected. It's inmates dealing and willing with the juveniles, and they're grown. I don't understand that. Come off into cells, being mistreated by the guards. is no good. I don't think children should be in CCC with adults. So I just want to address this juvenile system thing. It need to be re-looked at. And if y'all are gonna keep kids in CCC, then at least you have the phone visit where you can go actually see them instead of on a monitor. You know, we still talking about juveniles. And they should be protected more than they are, and they should be educated. My son he been in there a year and 2 months, haven't been educated, period. Haven't been charged or anything. It's just the bond too high for me to receive my child. So I think y'all should look at the bail reform for Louisiana. They got it in the other cities in Louisiana, but they don't have it here in Shreveport. I've been researching all that, all avenues, trying to get help and getting my child home, at least so he can be educated. If he's not charged or not proven guilty, I don't think juveniles should have bond that high.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wright. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. Mr. Clerk, is that the,
Move to adjourn.
all right.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir, Commissioner Everson.
before Ms. Wright leave, could I direct her to Mr. Clay Walker? And I saw Mr. Randall here.
Sure.
Mr. Walker, would you be willing to speak with Ms. Wright?
Thank you, Commissioner. All right, we are adjourned.